Thank you, Prof, for availing yourself today. We're sorry to intrude into your very busy program, but we are busy here with this project of building up the history of the University of the North. As you can see behind you, these are the interviews we've already done. These are the interviews we started with the Mamabulo people, trying to locate exactly how the whole land issue went about. We had Professor Manaka and Professor Mawasha as our trendsetters. And we have interviewed even Professor Ndebele up to now. We've done quite a number of interviews. And now we are coming to you and saying we want to set the pace properly. You have been the first student at the University of the, amongst the first students at the University of the North. And you've been an administrator and a lecturer, and we feel you have a very rich history. We would like to benefit from that, not only us, but even future generations. We have together with us the interviewing panel. Next to you we have Ike Matibe, we have Mlamli Makoko, Kehla Zungu, Margaret, why do the surnames forget? Married, I'm sorry. Simugele Kosa, Livingston Baloyi. The two are our students in the project. We also use our students. And Phil, who is from the ISS, we requested him to assist us today. And you will be interviewed by Esther Nisi. May I therefore set the pace for the interview? Prof, we will give you over to Esther to interview you today, being the 1st of July, 1998, here at the University of Venda. Thank you, Prof, once more.
Well, before the interview begins, I just want to thank all of you for providing me with the opportunity of interpreting my own past and the past of the University of the North. It's rare where people take you so seriously enough as to want to interview you about your past and help you to reconstruct what may look like an apparently chaotic life. And I have a soft spot for the University of the North, and I know the history that they're trying to assemble will go a long way in shedding a lot of light on the history of the whole country. Thank you very much.
I want to shake your hand before I start. Okay? I'm sorry, I'm just so overwhelmed because everything I know, I've read, and then I've waited for this minute to meet the person. So I'll start off. I have prepared some questions, but then whenever you want to add anything or deviate slightly from the question, you're welcome to do so. Okay. Let's start with your background, Professor. Could you give us some brief details about Professor Nkondo, the man, where he comes from?
Yeah, well, thanks very much. I was born about 50 kilometers east of here, at a place called Fukane. It used to be called Fukane in those days. I'm sure it has been converted into Vuani now, the Venda version of Fukane. That was many decades ago. And I went to school there until I completed what used to be called standard 6 those days, primary education. And then I moved on to what used to be called Douglas Lane Smith Secondary School, Lemana it used to be called, which I'm told still exists, where Lemana College of Education resides now. And then I left after what we used to call junior certificate. I moved on to Soweto, where I studied, what we used to call Form 4 and Form 5. I stayed with my elder brother, Curtis Nkondo, who's today a member of parliament in Gauteng. And what is significant about my stay, for the purpose of the record, is that when I was at Form 4 at Pimville High School, I was taught by Mrs. Mukukong, who's the wife to Professor Porth Mukukong, who's the elder brother. I think now in Swaziland. And that began my link in a very uncanny way with the University of the North. She taught me biology, but then I moved on to Orlando High, where I completed matric. But those were the days when the only university for blacks was Fort Hare, and it was pretty expensive. And I come from a large family, a family of 9, and all of us were at school almost at the same time. And my father, who was the principal of the Pukane primary school where I studied, couldn't afford. I remember he earned about 44 pounds a month, and to send 9 kids to school was just impossible. My mother taught what we would call home economics. So I come from what you'd call an average middle-class professional African family, after, because I couldn't afford to go to Fort Hare, I registered for a diploma in education. It used to be called the South African Teachers Diploma, which was offered by what we proudly called those days Pretoria Bantu Normal College. So I moved on to Pretoria Bantu Normal College, which was in Vlakfontein, which is today called Mamelodi. You'll slowly begin to know how old I am. Then we used those days, for the diploma, you had to take at least 4 courses, 4 degree courses before taking the diploma itself. So I took 4 courses there with the University of South Africa. That is like private study. That's where my interest in English, developed at that point. That was in 1959, by the way, before all of you were born. Yes. By the end of 1959, the apartheid government passed what is called now the University Extensions Act, which was the beginning of TEFLOP. And we now had an option of going, depending on our tribal affiliations. We were now required required to come to TEFLOP in 1960. There were 84 of us there in 1960, if I recall. I was student number 13, which was a very unlucky number. The present Director General of Education, Professor Manganyi, was student number 6. The former, we were together with the late brother of the former Director General of Health, Dr. Olio Shisana. Her elder brother, Mr. Michael Sona, was with us at that moment. He died later, I think, in 1967 in a car accident. We have on our staff here somebody who was with me at the university, and that's Professor Mulepo, who is now a professor of chemistry at the University of Venda. He was one of the 2 first students to be expelled from the black universities for political activities. Professor Mulepo and a friend of his, who's now at, in the Northwest. His name is Dr. Ben Marengwa. He's a geologist. They left and, of course, went to Germany to study. Okay. So before we left Vlakfontein. I remember it was in November when we were now bidding farewell to Bantu Normal College and bidding farewell to Vlakfontein and coming to TEFLOP. I was requested by my class to give a farewell speech. The present Professor Kumalo, the musician, who was at Wits, I don't know what it's at Wits now, was a guest speaker. And I was asked to speak on behalf of the students who were moving to TEFLOP. And I said to them then that there was a lot of criticism. We were going to Bush University, we were sellouts, and all of those terrible things that were said to us. And I said to them that some of us didn't have a choice. We didn't have a choice of going to Forte, we didn't have a choice of going to Roma, where President Ndebele ultimately landed. We didn't have a choice. So some of us had to come to TEFLOP. And I said to them that who were the ones who would testify to TEFLOP's capacity to deliver. We would bear the testimony ourselves, not Pretoria News. I called it Pretoria News then, not Pretoria News, but we, the students, who would go to TEFLOP and try to make the best of TEFLOP, would give testimony to what TEFLOP was about. Years later, in 1976, you remember, I edited a book called TEFLOP Testimony, which is a kind of a strange connection between what I said in 1959 in November and what I, with my colleagues at TEFLOP, said in 1974, 85, yeah. So that's how it started. I was one of the first 3 students to graduate from the university, the University of, then it was called the University College of the North because it was still affiliated to the University of Africa. It was myself. I majored in history and English. It was the late Mr. Dinani Mabuda Fasi, the late husband of Mrs. Joyce Mabuda Fasi, who's now an MP, and whose daughter is now working at this library, Mrs. Mulaudzi. She's a very, very rich history at a personal level. The third graduate was my own elder brother, Mr. Eric Nkondo, who graduated